Good evening, and welcome to tonight's Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Let me introduce some members of town government that assist this board. To my left is Martin Simon, Assistant Town Attorney. To his left is Blaise Donadio, a planner in the Planning Department. You're all here tonight seeking relief from the Smithtown zoning ordinances, and it's our job to try to help you achieve the relief you're requesting whenever possible. It's up to you to provide this board with precise and accurate information so we can make a decision based on the facts presented. This board must consider the 5 area variance considerations in order to render a decision, and they are as follows. Number 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the variance. Number 2, whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance. Number 3, whether the requested area variance is substantial. And number 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. And number 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. Procedures for tonight's meeting. Cases will be called in the order they are advertised. When you are called, please present your certificates of postings or mailings to Mr. Donadio if you haven't done so already. Then you'll be asked to go to the podium. We will state your name and address for the record and proceed to tell us why you need your variance. At the end of your presentation, if anyone in the audience would like to speak on your case, they will be given one opportunity to do so. Then the applicant can come back to the podium to answer their concerns. Once the public hearing is closed, no further information will be accepted concerning a case. There are 2 ways to find out about your case. You can call the planning office tomorrow after 12 p.m., or you can wait to be notified by mail. We do have 2 adjournments tonight. The first adjournment is case 18898, Prado 850, location 204 Jericho Turnpike. That has been adjourned to May 9th. The next case to be adjourned is case number 18899, Bianca Caris. Location is 99A Lake Avenue, Wisconsin. That case has been adjourned to April 25th.
All righty. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first case on the agenda is case number 18893, Ravindra Reddy Yaruva, 14 Astor Court, Comac. The location of the property is the south side of Astor Court, 540 feet west of Urbina Drive. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum side yard from 12 feet to 6 feet, to reduce the total side yard setback from 28 feet to 20 feet, to reduce the rear yard setback from 50 feet to 48 feet for a proposed 640 square foot first floor addition, 983 square foot second floor addition, and a 190 square foot garage addition.
Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, myself Ravindra Reddy Yerva. I'm the owner of 14 Astor Court, Comac. Actually, I just want to go for the variance we giving space and all. On behalf of me, Todd Connolly is going to speak about the.
He's going to speak on your behalf.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Thank you.
Sir, if you could just introduce, state your name and address. and
Nicholas-
Spell your last name so we get it correct on the
Sure.
record, please.
It's Nicholas Capucci, Cappucci. I work with Todd O'Connell Architects, 1200 Veterans Highway, Suite 120, Hauppauge, New York. Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. I do want to submit some photos that I have of the subject property and just the surrounding properties. So we are here today to take a small cape on this piece of land and kind of just renovate it and turn it into a larger place for his family to gather and live. We have a rear addition that we're proposing in the back that's a 640 square foot addition that will bump out the kitchen and the family room and the living room. Well, while we bump out this, this is what's bringing up the rear yard setback of 50 feet that's required, and we're asking for 48.45 feet, or 48 feet. We are proposing a second floor addition to this as well. It's a small cape right now, so there is about a 400 square foot second floor on it now. We are increasing it to probably about another 500 square feet to give a total second floor of 900 square feet. Even with the size of the house and the additions that we're doing, we are under the gross floor area and the FAR on the property. Along with the additions with the rear and the second floor, we are proposing to take the single garage and turn it into a two-car garage. While we do this, with this side addition, that's where the side yard setback of 12 feet now is going to yield us to a 6-foot or 6.24-foot setback. And the only way we could do that really to get the two-car garage, because we have a two-wide driveway, and to get the two-car garage, that's yielding us with that small side setback. And then that also triggers the aggregate as well. As you can see in the photos, the design that we're doing from our drawings are kind of right in characteristics with the neighborhood. There are a couple of houses right down the block that have the second floor addition. We're not going over the full house. Over the garage is still going to be a one-story, so it's just a portion of the second floor that we're going over. So it's not just a big, massive box. There was a note from the plans examiner too. We do have a shed on the property that's too close to the property line that we're just going to be demolishing and removing that. So that's pretty much it for the most part. It was a self-created variance because we are proposing everything. Everything is in proposed phase. There's nothing to maintain on the property. But again, the only way it's self-created is again, to get that kind of two-car driveway that we want. Two-car garage.
Okay. On the garage, 6 foot, that's just in the one corner, the lower corner,
Correct.
right? It goes up to 8 foot at the other end.
At the back, because the property's actually on that slant, so we have more room in the back, correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
The only question I have is, we received a letter regarding the side yard setback on that side. The neighbor's concerned about how tight it's going to be. One of the things I wanted to see if you could consider is maybe making that garage 1 or 2 feet narrower. You'd still have 18 or 19 feet inside.
It's definitely a possibility, or even maybe I could play with it and give it a step back a little bit to make that a little larger. But to keep the width, even a 21-foot width for a two-car garage is tight. All the vehicles nowadays are much larger vehicles, Lincoln Navigators and stuff, and just opening the two doors with two cars in it is very, very tight and awkward. But yeah, it's something we could take a look at and try to rework that corner.
Okay, thank you.
Paul Henning?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have a comment regarding the pitch of the roof. Matt, if you could bring up the photo of the house down the block. So one of the neighbors at 18 Astor, going back a few years ago, came in with a similar application, looking to do a second-story addition on the house. When the picture comes up on the screen, you can see there. They have pretty much a standard-looking two-story home with I would call a typical pitched roof in comparison to what the applicant is proposing to do with the pitch of their roof. That house has about a 25-foot height to the peak of the roof, whereas the applicant's looking at about 30, 31 feet. So our recommendation would be adjust the pitch of the roof and bring it down a little bit, character with the area.
Well, as you can see, actually, some of the photos that I did send you, I do have 18 Astor Court in there. And then even as you see 26 Astor Court, you can see that pitch and that large roof on that one as well. Again, that kind of what we are designing, we do feel like it is in the characteristics of the neighborhood, but it's definitely something we could take a look at or to work with is lower the pitch. You just looking for a lower roof pitch, or are you changing the hip roof more to the gable?
I guess ultimately, the design of the roof is really up to the applicant themselves, but the height, overall height, we'd like to see come down.
Okay, because I know what, it's 35 feet, so the height really shouldn't be in a question right
Yeah.
now at
Nobody in
30
that
feet.
area has anywhere near that, though. They're all typically 24, 25, 26.
Okay.
They're all within that area.
Okay, not a problem. We could bring it down.
Nothing? Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard in this application? Come on up, please. Good evening.
Good evening.
Could you state your name and address for the record? Spell your last name so we get it correct, please.
Jean and John Menzies, Menzies, and we are direct neighbors, 12 Astor Court. I did email this letter, so I'm pretty much going to
Right.
just read what I wrote, and I do, if you want to give them these pictures. Have some pictures that I submitted also. So just generally, just to say, this is without any animus whatsoever.
Just
This is.
address the board here.
This is from a homeowner point of view. Okay, so I wrote, "To whom it may concern, we are writing this letter to dispute the above variance application. Firstly, we do not believe there are hardships to warrant its approval. We are next-door neighbors, and we own 12 Astor Court since 2012. The neighbor at 14 Astor Court asked my husband last year, he approached him last year, how would he feel about this expansion, and was describing it then. I think he realized it was probably a little intrusive. I'm speculating. My husband, in so many words, told him then that it would be the wrong thing to do, in so many words, as it would negatively impact us. Secondly, we have just renovated our home, every penny into our home. We just renovated our home to increase its curb appeal, the resale value, and specifically just had done a new patio and fencing installed. This area is directly between 14 Astor Court and our side of the house, which there are pictures that show that. We created the space for a sunny, private living space. We feel that the houses are very close already at only 12 feet apart. And that the next door neighbor moving even closer to our property line, suggesting 6 feet, is really intrusive. Additionally, a large second-story addition to 14 Astor Court will tower over our ranch house, essentially blocking out the sun and looking down into our yard. It's not characteristic of our neighborhood. There are quite a few large houses, there are corner houses, et cetera. Not really a typical type of house in our neighborhood. As it stands right now, talking about looking down into the house, this is exactly where our patio area is. As it stands right now, their house is taller than ours, and there is a window that literally looks down into our bathroom window. Not to suggest they're looking in our window, but it's already above us and have that sense as it is. We believe also that the resale value of our home would be negatively impacted. Living next to a potentially densely populated, I'm assuming they may be having more company added to the house, would be unfavorable. I think as far as selling our house one day, I don't think it would be favorable, and also to have little to no privacy from the neighbor, I think would sway buyers as well. We may need to sell our house through a hardship of our own eventually, and we may not be able to for these reasons. So we just want to express our feelings as homeowners.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
One second, sir, 1 second. Is there anyone else like to be heard on this application? No? Okay.
So I guess just to address some of her points. Yes, the side yard with the garage is closer, but the side yard is, the garage is only 1 story. There's no windows facing that side, even on the second floor plan. If you have our second floor plan, you can see that we have 2 bedrooms in the upstairs with just windows in the front and in the back, so nothing's facing that side. We kind of did that, intentionally to keep, to keep that privacy away from the neighbors. And again, we're not kind of going over the full top, so we are kind of staying within the characteristics of the neighborhood, including Astor Court, 18 Astor Court, which is very similar to our design. We're just changing it up with the hip roofs and the size of the roof, which now we'll negotiate and bring that down as you guys are requesting, so we could bring that down to even a lower point. It's a small house. Again, the height is allowed at 35 feet here, and we're not even close to that. The value of the house will just be improved. The value of the neighborhood will be improved with this alteration, almost new construction. The curb appeal to the block and everything will be improved. So if anything, it would entice more people to come into the community and even create a bigger sale price for the homes and the homes all around them once this goes up or gets done. That's really about it.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second?
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18894, Faina Kamova and Ruben Yosipov, 160 Southern Boulevard in Nesconset. The location of the property is the west side of Southern Boulevard, 139 feet north of Maple Glen Lane. The property is owned R15. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 45 feet to 6 feet for a proposed 6-foot fence, to reduce the minimum setback of a 3-foot retaining wall from the lot line from 3 feet to 0, to reduce the setback of a 6-foot fence to the top of a 3-foot retaining wall from 3 feet to 0, to increase the maximum height of a 6-foot fence on top of a 3-foot retaining wall from 6 feet to 9 feet, to increase the maximum permitted paved surface in the rear yard from 25% to 32%, to increase the maximum permitted paved surface in the side yard from 25% to 92%.
Good evening.
Wow, that's some list. I hope everybody's in a good mood tonight. My name is Pierre D'Alessandro. I am here for Ruben Yosipov. I have a power of attorney on file. He's not here.
Yes.
Okay. All
Everything's-
good? All right. I'm sorry? D'*ALESSANDRO. Okay. All right, well, unfortunately, this situation is not a proposed situation. This is all existing, all these items are existing. Mr. Yosipov bought this house about a year and a half ago, and all these items were existing. As you guys all know, I think, because it's already been, the previous owner tried to get applications for this stuff and never finished it. We'll start with the big one, is the fence in the front yard. There is a 6-foot tall fence with, I believe, 17 concrete columns across the front of the yard that it happens to be not only too far forward, but on the right-of-way of the town, which we've already agreed to remove that. That's going to come down, and we're going to roll that back onto the property. That's something I've already discussed with the plans, and that's already going to be done. But with that being moved back, we're asking that that fence maintain a 6-foot height in the front yard, along with the sides of the fence in the portion of the front yard, also to remain at a 6-foot height. The concrete, the brick pillars will be removed, and they will not be reconstructed. Only 2 brick pillars, or 3 brick pillars will be reconstructed for the gate in the front, for the fence, for the driveway, but the rest of it will just be on a steel fence. Can you hear me? All right, so I guess in the midst of agreeing to move that back, we're also asking to maintain that as a 6-foot height. Southern Boulevard, although the neighborhood's a nice neighborhood, it's kind of a busy neighborhood, a busy street, so he'd like to keep that at a 6-foot height. The retaining wall in the rear yard also is existing, and the fence along that retaining wall sits on top of it, right along the border of the neighbors on the northwest side and the north side. I've spoken to both neighbors, and they both seem okay with it. It's, like I said, it's been there for several years. It doesn't seem to be posing an issue. It's built correctly. As you see, there's an architectural drawing. I have dug down, I have checked the footing, I did all that myself. So the wall is structurally sound. It has not shown any sign of collapse or anything. It seems to be built well. Again, the patio in the front, in the backyard, and the driveway in the front yard are also existing. These were covering a good portion of the front yard. You can see the numbers and the percentages. I guess he's asking to keep that because he wants to, not tear up the whole entire front yard. The driveway is wide. It does connect the front of the house to the garage that is way in the back of the house. So you definitely need the depth. And if you look at you see in the photos that I've included several shots from all different angles as far as the situation that's there now. And it makes sense for the driveway to be that large. It's a 2-car garage, it's a wide garage, and it comes out all the way to the front of the house. He's asking to keep that, to maintain the wall in the rear. There is a pool in the backyard, which I believe has not even been finished as far as a CO because the front fence was holding him back from that. And that's something that we'll obviously be applying for afterwards, once this is settled. That's what the town had told me to do. So the patio that's existing around the pool is part of the coverage of the backyard. If you look at it, I mean, it's very nice. It looks great. Everything came out really nice, but it's overage on the footage that's, designated by the town. As far as the neighborhood, the house directly across the street on Southern Boulevard has a 6-foot fence also right on Southern Boulevard. I believe it's met the setback, but it is a 6-foot fence in the front yard. And there are some other homes in the area that do have 6-foot fences. Again, they're not in the right of way, but they are 6-foot fences, and they are considered front yards on corners and whatnot. It doesn't impede any traffic coming up and down Southern Boulevard. It doesn't impede a vision for any traffic. None of the neighbors have complained for the past few years that it's been there already. I believe this has been about 6 years since this was all constructed, the prior owner. And I feel like it's not really impeding in anybody's way, and it doesn't look bad. And I guess we're just asking to keep it where it is, more or less. Of course, the front fence, because we know that's in the right of way.
Okay, thank you.
That's it?
Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
Yeah, I do, actually. The existing trees that are currently behind the fence
yes,
are going to
okay.
wind up in front of the fence?
Actually, yes, that's why we're going to move the fence back so far. We're going to move it well onto the property because of those trees are pretty much right behind the fence, so we can't really only move it back a few feet. It's going to probably be about 8 or 9 feet back.
Okay, thank you.
So, okay.
No, thank you.
All good?
Mr. Chairman, DEW has the following comments. The survey submitted by the applicant indicates the following additional encroachments. A portion of the existing western fence and retaining wall encroach up to 3 feet onto the parcel to the west. A portion of the existing northern fence and retaining wall encroach up to 0.3 feet onto the parcel to the north. And a portion of the existing southern fence encroaches up to 0.6 feet onto the parcel to the south. This department recommends that any approval of the application include a condition which requires the removal or legalization of these encroachments. Thank you.
Can we clarify that again, please? I'm sorry, you're saying on what's existing there now?
Yeah, this extends up to 3 feet right there.
Yes. That's the area in question. That's 3 feet onto the neighbor's property?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
According
okay.
to that survey that was submitted. The dashed line represents the fence, and the solid line represents the property line. Let's see, you can zoom in.
So on the northwest corner?
Western fence, I guess that'd be the northwest, yeah.
And on the northern side, all the way to the front? The dash is the property
The
line?
dash is the fence, according
Oh.
to this.
I don't see what you're seeing. Must have a different survey.
Says on the survey, I guess the surveyor made a note that the fence runs from 2.1 feet west of the property line to 2.4 feet east. So it kind of starts out encroaching and then crosses the line. You can see it on the note right underneath the dotted line for the fence.
I'm looking at a different survey. That's the survey I submitted right there, right? That is. Okay, well, look, I mean, I was unaware of that, but if it's something that needs to be done, of course, we'll address it and we'll maintain, you know. Is that something that we can, with the permission of the neighbor, if we can get an easement or something along those lines? If they're allowed? I know when you sell homes, there's a document that you can sign and,
Yeah, I think a
Be
boundary
okay
line
with it.
agreement or something.
I'm sorry?
It's up to the town, I guess. It's not for us to decide that.
Oh, okay, but is there, or I'm asking, is there a situation in place that can happen as long as it's, or is that,
I guess that will be between you and the neighbor.
oh, okay, all right, that's not a problem. Okay, I will certainly address that then, yes, absolutely, not a problem.
What you submitted, so.
Okay.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second?
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18896, Herbert and Alana Bacard, 18 Tall Tree Lane, Smithtown. The location of the property is the southeast corner of Tall Tree Lane and Basswood Lane. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 40 feet to 28 feet on Basswood Lane for a proposed 18-foot by 40-foot in-ground pool, to increase the maximum permitted paved surface in the rear yard from 25% to 33% for proposed paving.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Herbert Bocard. I reside at 18 Tall Tree Lane, and I have with me my pool contractor, who I give permission to speak on my behalf for this application.
Fine, Thank you.
Thank
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Dieter Specht, Spectacular Pools. My office is at 265 Brookfield Avenue, Centum Riches, New York.
Just spell your last name so we get it correct.
Specht. Thank you. So we're looking to put a pool in, and there are power lines on the property, which we have an approved hot stick test for the proposed location, but we can't move the pool any further away from the side yard because we will then be too close to the power lines. So that's why we have proposed the location where it is.
Okay.
All right.
And the rear yard paving is around the pool?
Yes, there's, the site plan shows it. I highlighted the pool and the patio, and I don't know if you could bring that back, but the yellow line is the proposed patio. It's not an overly large patio, and we're only going over the required lot coverage slightly.
Okay.
Right. Thank you.
Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thanks.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18897, Kenneth and Mary Ellen Shin, 82 Smith Street, Nesconset. The location of the property is the southeast corner of Smith Street and Ronald Court. The property is zoned R10. Excuse me. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 25 feet to 20 feet on Ronald Court for a proposed 16-foot by 34-foot in-ground pool. Reduce the minimum distance to a front lot line from 10 feet to 0 on Ronald Court for an existing 6-foot fence. Permit a fence greater than 4 feet in the required front yard on Smith Street for an existing 6-foot chain link fence.
Good evening.
Good evening. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. My name is Anthony Powell, Powell, representing the applicant.
And you submitted the power of attorney?
Yes, we did. We are submitting a variance application for 82 Smith Street in Nesconset. In completing this application, we have considered the 5 questions typically asked to justify the approval of a variance. We have provided justifications for each question. The proposed structures are not expected to generate significant noise, traffic, or other externalities that could adversely affect the neighboring properties or the surrounding community. Whether or not the request is substantial, the applicant has requested only the minimum relief necessary to permit the proposed structures, and the reduced setback for the pool and fence is not expected to have a significant impact on the character of the neighborhood or the surrounding properties. As to whether or not there's an alternative way to achieve the benefit, while there may be other ways to achieve the benefits of an in-ground pool without exceeding the setback requirements, the proposed project is the most effective and reasonable solution for the applicant's specific circumstances. The proposed pool is designed to complement the existing home and maintain the aesthetic character of the neighborhood. Therefore, we believe that the requested variance is necessary to achieve the desired benefits and that there are no feasible alternative solutions that would provide the same level of benefit and value. As to whether or not there would be any adverse effect on the environment, the proposed structures are not hazardous or toxic, and they will not generate any significant environmental impacts. The construction of the swimming pool will be carried out in accordance with all necessary safety and environmental regulations. The proposed structures are not located near any environmentally sensitive areas, and they will not have a significant impact on the natural environment or its wildlife. Additionally, the construction of the swimming pool will be subject to any necessary permits and approvals from relevant agencies, ensuring compliance with all applicable regulations. And lastly, as to whether or not the difficulty was created by the applicant, we do not believe it was. The need for the relief of setbacks is specifically related to the installation of the in-ground pool and the existing fence, which is a common and desirable feature for residential properties. The applicant has taken care to design the project in a way that minimizes its impact on the surrounding properties and maintains the aesthetic character of the neighborhood. Additionally, the applicant has consulted with professionals and conducted extensive research to ensure that the proposed project meets all relevant safety and environmental standards. Therefore, we believe that the need for the requested variance is not due to any actions or omission by the applicant, but rather to the specific circumstances of the property. And I'll just note that the homeowners, Kenneth and Mary Ellen Shin, have owned their property, have owned their home at 82 Smith Street since 1986. And during this time, they have taken great care to maintain the property, and they are committed to ensuring that any changes made, such as the installation of the pool, are done in a manner that is respectful of the neighborhood and compliant with all regulations. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
Thanks.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
everyone.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18900, Metehan Aslantis, 42 South Avenue, Smithtown. The location of the property is the west side of South Avenue, 1,000 feet north of West Avenue. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting a variance to permit environmentally sensitive lands to be altered where depth to groundwater is equal to or less than 10 feet for a proposed 4,904 square foot, two-story single-family dwelling with a 443 square foot attached garage.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. My name is Metehan Aslantaş. I live in 42 South Avenue, Smithtown. Actually, I don't live. House is burned down, and Mr. Carmine represented me.
Okay, fine.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Carmine Grasso from Cataldo Grasso Architects. My office is at 14 Carl Avenue in Smithtown. I represent the Aslantises in their request for a variance residence on environmentally sensitive land. My clients are seeking to build a new house on their property after the existing house was damaged by fire and then subsequently demolished. They received a permit for the demolition of the house, and that's all been done. The new house will be 4,904 square feet, the two-story house. Will be set further back on the property than the previous house, and it also has a 443 square foot garage, attached garage. The house meets all of the requirements for the R10 zoning district, which it's located in, but the land is considered environmentally sensitive because the depth of groundwater is less than 10 feet. We had a test boring done on the property, and it showed groundwater at 9.10 feet. We feel that it's appropriate to approve this variance since the house was previously on the property, and it's also in character with the rest of the neighborhood, since the rest of the neighborhood actually is all in the same, has the same predicament of the high groundwater, and there's houses up and down that entire block. My clients are currently renting right now since the previous house had the fire, and they'd like to, have their permanent residence now back on this property. With regard to the area variance considerations, we feel there's no undesirable change to the neighborhood because the house is replacing a house that was there previously and just was damaged by fire. The benefit cannot be sought by another method because any construction you do on the property due to the high groundwater would need a variance. We don't feel that the request is substantial because it meets all of the zoning criteria except for the disturbance of the environmentally sensitive land. The house, we feel, will have no more impact on the neighborhood or the environment than a previous house that was there. Again, it's a residential neighborhood with all, up and down that whole block, so it's just going to fit in with the rest of the neighborhood. And we feel the difficulty is not self-created because there's no way to build on the property without a variance request. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Thank you very much.
Okay. The proposed house is going to be what? 270 feet from the roadway?
You know what, let me just double check that. I don't remember the number offhand.
232.
232, yeah.
232? Oh, okay.
Yes. It's set more towards the middle of the property. The original house is set very close to the front. They like to have a larger front yard and have it set further back.
Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
Planning?
A few, if you don't mind, for Mr. Grasso. So just a couple of pieces of information to note. When the application was submitted, there was no test hole data for the high groundwater submitted with the Board of Zoning Appeals application. Currently, we do not have any documentation from Suffolk County Health Department that they've received an application regarding the proposed house or that they've approved any kind of plan. So these two items, I think that the Department of Environment and Waterways will definitely be looking for. And I think one of the big issues that they do have is that apparently, according to the plans, there's a proposed 7 bedrooms within the house.
Yes, there are 7 bedrooms, yes.
Okay. Is that a large family that they need 7 bedrooms?
Yes.
Okay. Regarding the setback, if you look at the character of the area, you can see that the majority of the houses in the neighborhood all have a setback that are relatively equal to each other. So the big question is, why would the applicants want to set the house so far back from the road and basically be looking into their neighbors' backyards?
When we were doing this originally, at that point, the original house was there. We didn't know if that was going to be knocked down at the time when we were going to be doing the construction. So we knew it had to get knocked down, but we didn't know the timing of it. So we wanted to set it back further. It meets all of the setback requirements, so I didn't really look too closely into how far back it was. I understand what you're saying, that the existing houses around in the neighborhood are all up much further. In regards to and just going back to your original point about the test hole data, as I didn't realize I didn't submit the test hole data. I have it. If I can submit it to the town tomorrow. And we have not made an application to the health department yet because we wanted to see what happened here before we did that application.
Okay. Being that you are in a high groundwater area, is there a proposed basement, or would the house be constructed on a slab?
The house is, there is a proposed basement. The house is going, the first floor elevation is going to be raised about 4 feet above grade, and then the basement will be roughly 4 to 5 feet below grade itself. So you'll have like a full basement, but more of it's going to be below grade than above grade, but it will be roughly like an 8-foot high basement. But
Okay. So you'll be
we won't have an
regrading
issue with the
lot.
groundwater, because the groundwater, again, was around 9 feet, and we're only going to be about 5 feet down with the basement.
Okay. That's all I have, but I'm sure Sabrina has some comments.
Very similar, but yes, Mr. Chairman, the current application to create 7 or more bedrooms may exceed Suffolk County Department of Health standards with regards to sewage design flows. We have notified the applicant's representative, Mr. Grasso, of their need to contact the Department of Health. Additionally, due to the presence of high groundwater on the subject property, the applicant has also been notified that the submission of test hole data is necessary, and upon a receipt of this information, we will commence our review of this application. And lastly, DEW wishes to consider information presented by the applicant, as well as any comments received by the public, before making a recommendation to the board. Therefore, no decision will be made tonight. Thank you.
I have one question. How many bathrooms?
You know what? Let me just double
have
check.
7
I
bedrooms,
don't
but-
remember offhand. Just let me just pull the plan out real quick. Uh, 4.5 baths.
5.5.
Yeah, 4.5. Yeah,
4.5.
or 5. There's 4 full baths and a
5.5.
powder room.
5.5?
1, 2,
Right?
3.
Unless I'm missing one here.
Hold on. You might be right.
There's
3 on the
one
second?
full bath on the first floor and a powder room on the first
Yep.
floor. And there is 1, 2, 3 on the second floor.
Sorry, yes.
I'd just like to comment on Sabrina's comment about the 7 bedrooms. To my knowledge, I have not seen any issues with having a 7-bedroom house on a property of this size in Suffolk County. I've done them before, so I don't think there's going to be an issue with the health department as far as the allowable flow on the site. It's a single-family residence, which still technically has a 300-gallon per day flow.
Anything else, Carmine? No?
That's all I have.
We just need to see that information, so as soon as you
Absolutely,
have
yeah,
it, thank
yeah.
you.
Again, we didn't apply because we wanted to see how everything went here first before we went to the health department.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Come on up, sir. Good evening.
How are you? My name is Michael Avasano. I live at 44 South Avenue, which would be next to this residence in question.
Michael, can you spell your last name, please? I'm sorry.
Aversano.
Okay, thank you.
I really don't, my biggest elephant in the room is the actual setback of the new house. Because there's no houses in that whole development that is set back that far. I have really no complaints what they want to build there, but that would adversely affect my house, because that'll be middle. If you go back to those pictures, I could explain a little bit better. Sure. Yeah, the plot maps, I guess. That's all right. Maybe I'll sing for you for a little bit. And as far as the 7 bedrooms, 4 baths, I mean, that's not my job, that's your job to figure out if that's, goes with the neighborhood or whatever. That's not my objection. Maybe someone could tell me, what is the groundwater distance that you're allowed to build a basement on?
Well, there really is no set number. It's really on a case-by-case basis because the groundwater fluctuates.
Okay.
The entire area in that area, southwest, North Avenue.
No, I know. I've been
It's
there
all high
24
groundwater.
years. I
But
know.
if you go from street to street to street, the height of the groundwater fluctuates. Mr. Grasso said they're at about 9 feet depth of groundwater. You could go 5 houses down, they could be 3 feet depth of groundwater.
Okay.
It varies, so you don't know.
And if I'm correct, he said the basement wouldn't be going 8 foot down or whatever. It would be only 5 foot, and the rest of it would be above ground. Does that mean the roof line is going to be at its max at 35 feet?
When we get back to the plans, we could take a look at the height of the
Okay.
roof and see where it's going to be at.
Okay.
Are you going to be able to bring that up, Matt?
In a couple minutes.
Computer's being glitchy. 33 feet?
What's the height?
33.8, I think.
30,
33.8.
33.8.
I'll remember that.
33.6.
So your major concern is the setback. Why don't you explain to us while we're trying to get this picture up for you?
Well, the rest of the neighborhood is basically within a line. The houses are all in a line. This would be the only house. I wasn't even under the impression, I wasn't going to say a word. I was just coming to see what kind of house was being built next to me until I saw the setback. Then I said I had to say something because that would definitely adversely affect my life as well as my mother-in-law, which is sitting there, which is on the other side. So I'm to the west, and my mother-in-law is to the east. So it would definitely adversely affect both of us. And that's really it. That's the gist of it.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know what the purpose is. I think Mr. Grasso explained that they put the plans in because they didn't know they were demoing the house in the front. Am I right with that, or no?
We'll have to bring him back up and ask him, but that sounds
Okay,
right.
that'd be a good thing.
That sounds right.
You want to bring him up now, or you want to wait for me to go?
We'll wait
No?
till you're done.
So that's what I got out of that conversation. But otherwise, there's no other houses anywhere in that neighborhood that aren't in line with each other within 5 feet, give or say. Not whatever that looked like, those properties there are 100 by 400. It's like a builder's acre. It's like 40,000 square feet. And it looks like that's plopped right in the middle, which would be in the middle of my yard, for sure.
As I said earlier, when we did a view, the chairman and I were in the neighborhood yesterday morning looking at the lot and then looking at the surrounding area. And driving up and down the street, you can see that the majority of the houses all have roughly the same setback. Looks to be about 40 or 50 feet setback from the road. So this would be considerably more than that.
I don't think there's any 5,000 square foot homes on that block as well at the present time.
I don't think we're going to be able to bring that up.
We're trying.
Want me to draw it? I think I got it in memory. All right, well, you got the gist of it. I mean, you pointed it out
Yeah.
from the beginning. I mean, it's not, that's about it.
We got the gist of it.
All right, maybe you could bring him back up about that.
We will.
What?
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience there? Come on up. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Sistina, S-I-S-T-I-N-A, Aversano, A-V-E-R-S-A-N-O. Again, the only thing I have that's a problem is the setback at 250 feet back. When I walk out my back door, I will see cars in a driveway. I will see the whole front of the house. His house will be lined up with my built-in pool that's set back like 300 feet from the main street. So again, it's impeding on my property, and it kind of looks weird that it's not lined up with the rest of the houses. Again, I'm in my backyard having a little barbecue, and he could be working on the engine of a car or whatever in a driveway, so that's my problem. And being so high, our groundwater, we hit 4.5, and we hit 7.5 when we built our house in the front of the property, and that's when it was dry. When it was wet season or bad rainy season, we have terrible groundwater. And I feel being so high, they're going to huge house, really high off the ground, looking at my house and my family while we're in the backyard. And that's the only question I have and what you consider.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to be heard on this application? Anyone else? No? Carmine?
Thank you. I'd like to address some of the comments. I spoke to my client. The two main reasons why they would like the house setback where it is one, obviously they've lived there when the previous house was there and it had the fire. They feel there's a lot of noise from Route 347, which is across the street, just a block from them. So they wanted to move further back from that, and they feel that there's also the traffic on that street goes by very fast, and they have young kids that they just want to, keep safe. They want to keep them far back. Without sounding argumentative, I also just want to reiterate that the reason we're here is only because of the high groundwater. The setbacks that we are requesting all meet the zoning ordinance, so that really shouldn't be an issue. We do understand what they're saying regarding the front of the house being towards their backyard, and my client had said they would put fencing up, trees, plantings, everything to help screen their property from the neighbors as well. And as far as the basement goes, many of the houses on that street have basements. In fact, directly across the street from this house was recently new construction with a basement as well. So I don't think there's an issue with having a basement. And after consulting with my client, they also said if for some reason the health department has an issue with the fact that there would be 7 bedrooms, we can just have the bedrooms on the second floor and maybe eliminate bedrooms on the first floor and turn them into living room, den, whatever, anything like that.
I think there was a question.
Oh, yeah, the demolition question, yes. When we first were putting the plan together for this, we knew we were going to have to demolish the existing building because you can't have two houses on the same property. So it was just a question of timing. We didn't know how that was going to work, so we laid this out so that we may be able to start the construction on this while the demo was going on the other building. We always knew there would definitely be a demo of the existing house.
Okay, fine, thank you.
I got a question for you, Carmine, real
Yeah.
quick. The neighbor had indicated that they had a couple of test holes done when they built and that the water was at a much higher level at the rear of the property. Do you have just one test hole or do you have
I have
multiple?
one test hole, actually, grabbed the wrong folder. I have one test hole, hold on. The test hole that we did have was near the front of the property because that was the only place the guy could get access to at the time. And it was at 9.1 feet.
Now, wouldn't it make sense to have a test hole where you're going to put the building?
Yeah, again, when he came there, there had been the fire and everything, so it was all fenced off, and he couldn't get into that back area. So that was the only area we could get to at the time.
Okay.
We could always have additional test holes
I
done.
think it would
and
make
things-
sense
yeah,
because
yeah.
if it is true that the groundwater is significantly higher back there, then,
No, that's understandable. I see what you're saying, yeah.
okay, thank you.
Just one comment, Mr. Chairman. If the applicant is going to be getting additional test holes, the board may not wish to close the application and wait for the results of those tests, and then have that information come back to the board before making a decision.
All right, if we leave it open,
No.
when do you think you'll have everything done?
I could probably have the test holes done within the next 2 weeks. Well, depending on the schedule of the geotechnical guy, but he's usually pretty fast, and I would think by next meeting, we probably should have that information.
The next meeting, April 11th?
All right, maybe the one after that, just to be safe, yeah.
The 25th?
All right, yeah, that would be more
All right,
reasonable.
all right. So this will be adjourned to April 25th, depending on your test hole, right?
Okay, sounds good,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Want to give me the rest of it?
Nope.
Can we have 1 minute?
What?
We have 1 minute. It's back up, but we... Yeah, that's what we need. All right, we're ready. Okay. The next case on the agenda is case number 18901, Charles and Candace Marino, 63 Ruth Boulevard, Comac. The location of the property, the east side of Ruth Boulevard, 248 feet south of Havemeyer Lane. The property is zoned R43. The applicant is requesting to a variance to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 60 feet to 54 feet for a proposed 301 square foot roof over porch.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Charles Marino. I reside at 63 Ruth Boulevard, Comac,
Okay.
and we're requesting a variance to have a front porch overhang encroach into the 60-foot setback.
Okay. So you've expanded 6 foot
Yes.
from the front. Okay. Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No.
Thank you. Planning?
No, thank you.
No. Is there anyone in the audience excuse me. Is there anyone in the audience want to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, case number 1-18417, Stephen and Teresa Harrington, 16 Smiths Lane, Comac. The location of the property, the west side of Smiths Lane, 76 feet south of Pickwick Drive. The property is owned R15. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 45 feet to 39 feet, to reduce the minimum side yard setback from 16 feet to 9 feet, to reduce the total side yards from 34 feet to 18 feet for a proposed 479 square foot first floor addition, 61 square foot front porch addition, and 446 square foot front entry garage addition. To reduce the distance to a lot line from 1 foot to 0 for an existing paved driveway.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Vincent Tremarco. I've submitted the affidavit of posting and mailing to Mr. Donadio. Some time ago, a couple of years ago, actually, we made an application very similar to the application we're making tonight. And by the way, thank the board for reopening the hearing. Now, my clients have thought the matter over and have decided not to do the second-story addition. So I guess less is better. There's less square feet involved. But we do need the other variances that we're requesting. And the reason why we need that side yard variance for the first floor addition is because we're moving further back with the construction of the first floor addition. Again, the board approved all the applications a couple of years ago, so we're just asking for less now, and as happenstance has it, we have to come back because we're moving the first floor, or we're extending the first floor further to the back of the property. We don't think that the variance will produce an impact on adjacent properties. Now it's 1 story rather than 2. Is the variance substantial? We think not. Again, the board granted most of the application the last time we were here. Can we achieve the benefit by some other alternative? No, this is the only place where we can put the garage and the other addition. Whether this variance will have an adverse effect on the environment, I guess it would have less an effect than it had when we applied and you granted it the last time. Whether the difficulty was self-created, we didn't start anything yet. We're asking for the board's approval. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thanks.
No, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Sabrina, you don't. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18895, Tara and Dennis Esnes, 31 Oak Street, Smithtown. The location of the property is the north side of Oak Street, 480 feet east of St. Johnland Road. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting a special exception to permit a temporary living quarters for a parent.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Tara Esnes, E-S-N-E-S, my husband Dennis, and my mother Christine Halpin, who we're requesting the special exception to have her move in with us. We're looking to convert our garage and family room into a 560 square foot living space for my mother. Oh, and I did get this letter from the planning board approving, it looks like.
Okay, we have. Okay, we have that letter. Yeah, you want to keep this for you? Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
Planning.
The cat's out of the bag, we recommended approval, so there you go.
Sorry. Thank you very much.
You stole his thunder. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard? Come on up, sir, please. What? No? You recommended approval. You want to say something? You have to, no, you have to come up. You have to come up, please. Good evening. You can lift that up a little bit. State your name and address for the record. Spell your last name, please.
William Michaelis. The last name is Michaelis, 40 Oak Street, Smithtown.
Right, thank you.
We just talked to our neighbors
Excuse
at
me, yeah.
37 and 39. They would just like to know if the garage door is going to stay there or going to make it look like there's no garage there anymore.
Excuse me, sir. Address
Oh.
the board.
Well, we just like to know the look of the front, how the house is going to look.
We'll ask, yeah.
What was that?
We will ask them. We'll bring them back.
Okay.
Is that your only question, sir?
Yeah, they're just concerned about the appearance of the house in the neighborhood, because usually no garages are converted in the neighborhood on Oak Street.
Okay.
And they're just worried about the look of the garage. They couldn't be here, 37 was down in Florida, and 39 is home with young kids.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who want to be heard on this application? No? Come on back, sir.
The garage is going to be closed off and removed and sided like the normal siding of a regular house.
And there'll be a window put in so that the windows are, it's even across.
Okay. So the garage door.
The garage door will be completely removed,
eliminated, and
yes.
you're going to side the house.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And the entire front of the house is being sided so that it'll all match.
So it all, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second. Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Steve leaving or leaving?
One second, please. Let Steve get the drawings out before. he
Oh,
goes.
okay.
Steve's gone. You do it. Thank you. All right. Yep.
All right. The next case on the agenda, case number 18891, Meadow West LLC, 85 Meadow Road West, Kings Park. The location of the property is the north side of Meadow Road West, 584 feet west of Indian Head Road. The property is zoned HI. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum side yard setback from 50 feet to 5 feet, and for a second side yard setback of 50 feet to 7 feet for proposed 2,700 square foot storage building, to reduce the minimum required parking spaces from 14 to 7.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, what's left of the members of the board. Anthony Tanzi, my address is at 16 Brand Street, Kings Park, New York. I would like to first point out for the record that I am a member of the BZA, and that as such I do not expect any special treatment. Whatever you guys decide, I am certainly fine with. I'd like to hand the meeting over to my engineer, Mr. Aylward.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Matthew Aylward with R&M Engineering, 50 Elm Street in Huntington. Last name is Aylward. On September 13th, 2022, this project was approved for several variances, two of which we're kind of seeking to, I guess not modify, but reestablish. One being the side yard setback and the other being the parking relief. As we were designing the site plan, it came to our attention that the property should wholly be in, the health department requested that the building footprint be wholly on lot 4.1. So we shifted the building over 1 foot to the east, and what that did was that changed our variance on the side yard on the east side from 6 feet to now needing 5 feet. But that provides 7 on the west side, which was previously granted at 6. The second variance that we now seek is the parking relief, 14 stalls being required because we're proposing now a full basement. After we did the test holes, we came to the realization that, or at least the test holes showed that 10 feet of soil where the building was going to go doesn't have the proper bearing capacity. So we came up with 3 options. One was to pile support the structure. The second was to remove the material and then backfill and lifts so that it could adequately support the structure. And then the third, which was really the most cost economical, was to remove the material, extend the footings down to the 10-foot depth, and then put a basement in. It should be noted that as we are increasing the amount of storage space, we're not changing the amount of employees. So the testimony that was provided in September of 2022 is still consistent with the parking that's required by this operation. I also have with me Kean Cody, who's the traffic engineer. He can speak on behalf, and he also has an updated report reflecting the updated numbers.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. My name is Kean Cody on behalf of the firm of Robinson & Mueller Engineering. Our office at 50 Elm Street in Huntington, New York. My last name is C-O-D-Y. If you need my first name, let me know. Before I start, I'd like to submit our updated parking report for the record.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
As Mr. Edwards said, in terms of functionality, nothing's really changed from when we were previously before the board. The site still expects 1 to 2 employees on site. We are going to be providing 7 parking spaces, one additional from when we were previously here for 6. We've now moved to 7. The variance has gone from 2 stalls to 7 stalls because of the change in the square footage for the basement. Though we expect only the 2 stalls to ever be used, meaning we'd have 5 left over. We also provided an updated ITE assessment of the new square footage. The ITE is an organization which utilizes industry standard data collected from throughout the country for different land uses and creates parking and trip generation rates. Based off that information, the 2 land use codes that we looked at were the light industrial and the warehousing land uses, which apply to the storage aspect of the building. They resulted in 3 and 5 vehicles parked on site if they were to go by industry standards. However, the applicant has once again indicated only 1 to 2 employees would ever be on site. It's a private parking area. We wouldn't expect public to utilize it. So we believe the 7 provided would be more than adequate.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
That's your person, okay, fine, thank you. Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
Thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
No. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made to close the application, it's been seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Want to tell them to come back in? I guess when they go out. Yeah. Stretch your leg. Both of your fingers, right?
Where'd they go?
Yeah. That's not Tony's part, I think. He'd go to Shanahan's.
Oh, there they go.
I know.
All right, back at it.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18868, Harvinder Palmer, 33 Trescott Path, Fort Salonga. The location of the property is the north side of Trescott Path, 865 feet east of Truxton Lane. The property is zoned R43. The applicant is requesting variances to permit environmentally sensitive lands to be altered for slopes greater than 15%. To permit construction within 10 feet of slopes greater than 25% for 5 begun prior large concrete block retaining walls and regrading in the required rear yard.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, honorable members of the board. Kevin O'Brien from O'Brien Law, PC, 462 Sagamore Avenue, East Williston, New York, here on behalf of the applicant Harvinder Palmer. If I can, I just want to submit, I got involved in this relatively recently, so disclosure affidavit on behalf of myself as well as an authorization.
I think we have that. Yeah. Yeah, we got it
Yeah,
by-
okay, that's right,
yeah,
my
we got it
assistant,
by email.
okay. She's more efficient than I think she is, you know, I thought I just had to hand this in. So, thank you. So this is an application, I guess it appeared before the board previously on February 14th, and there were certain recommendations that were made at that particular time. It's an application, you know, as noted, seeking variances of section 112-26 and 322-19 for steep slope and retaining walls in a sensitive area. I think at the time, on February 14th, there were certain suggestions that were made, one of which was to retain a licensed professional engineer to prepare the plans that would be submitted as part of the application. The applicant has retained Thomas Riley, a licensed professional engineer, and plans, I believe, have been submitted in connection with that. One of the other comments, so as a result of that, he's redesigned slightly the location of the walls. So there are, as was noted in the call of the calendar, there are 5 proposed retaining walls labeled on Mr. Riley's plans as A, B, C, D, E, and F. So if you go from the rear property line, I think that's the A wall, and then they proceed, you know, from the rear property line towards the house, and then there is one wall that goes parallel to the side yard. So the 5 walls are running parallel from the rear property line, and the last retaining wall, which basically at Mr. Riley's suggestion, all the walls are essentially closed in. One of the comments that came from the board last time, as well as from Mr. Riley, is that the aesthetic aspect of the walls. They said that they were commercial looking and not aesthetically appealing. So as a result of that, what we have, and I'm not so sure that it was necessarily submitted or not. If the board is interested, we could show you. So there is a manner within which we can make the bricks themselves. Actually, what they do is they recoat the bricks, and it has a stone sort of appeal to it and look to it. In addition, what we have done is in between each retaining wall, there's landscaping, and we've used a variety of different types of landscaping. So this way, it's sort of asymmetrical as opposed to completely symmetrical. So this way, you'd use perhaps a Leyland cypress, and then you mix it up with a western red cedar, and then you'd have like a different varieties of landscaping. I personally prefer to do it that way because sometimes, way back in the day, and you may be too young to remember, but back when we used to use hemlocks, and hemlocks all got the woolly Adele did, and then, that would die, and then your whole bunch of hemlocks would be gone. So this way, if you mix up the varieties, similar to the way the black pines and the white pines, sometimes a particular variety might become diseased, so you mix up the different varieties of landscaping, and it makes it lasts longer, just in the event that one never knows what the next disease is that's going to hit some of your landscaping. The other thing which was suggested and incorporated into the plan is to also have sort of cascading vines, so that this way you're, so the only one that I would think would necessarily be affected aesthetically by the way the retaining walls would look would be the property to the rear. From the sides, you don't really see it. From the front, you don't see it, but there is a property to the rear, and so as to minimize any sort of aesthetic impact on the look of the retaining walls, to upgrade the actual retaining wall itself, as well as to have, if we could have this sort of cascading vines, it'll drape down on them, and this way you really don't see the concrete itself as well. So I think some of the suggestions that were actually made by the board, as well as by Mr. Riley from engineering, as well as our own Mr. Riley. I know it's a little confusing because we've got Tom Riley, who's our engineer, and Mark Riley from the town. But they, them putting their heads together, I think wind up at the end of the day with a better product. If I can. Now, I believe, if my recollection is correct, I think the last picture or drawing might reflect the way the block would look. Let me see, I think I might have one more. So if my recollection is correct, but it might not be, so forgive me if it's not. But I think the last page might depict how the actual, so going from, what was sort of a commercial-looking type of block to being able to put this sort of coating, and kind of similar to sometimes if you go along the Northern State Parkway and you'll see where they have, and forgive me because I don't have the right word, but it's sort of like a mold that they use. And you put that mold, and then this way, it looks like bricks or stone and the like. So that's one aspect of it. And like I said, the other aspect, and we put a key for the different types of landscaping that we would be using, which would, you know, mitigate and soften sort of the look of the actual retaining wall itself, including, like I said, the sort of cascading vines. And then as far as the structural integrity is concerned, that's probably one of the main things where we had sort of our engineers coordinating with your engineers, and you know, they had made certain recommendations relative even to drainage and the like, and we agree with any of the comments that the town's engineers have made, and, you know, agree to incorporate them. So for instance, there was one aspect of where we thought it was a good idea to put a dry well into the property. They don't think that that's a good idea, so we'll go with whatever the, you know, the engineers are seeking for us to incorporate into it. But as I had mentioned, the essentially the size, you know, lengthwise, for the different retaining walls remain essentially, you know, the same. There's no setback issues relative to them, though he has pulled them in slightly. I think that would be on the east side. So where they were previously just straight retaining walls, the engineers had recommended and have been incorporated into the plot plan to sort of pinch them in, and it just goes along with the topography of the property. So I think with those sort of incorporated changes, I think we try to do everything that the board had asked us to do, as well as what the engineers have asked us to do. And I think at the end of the day, it's a better design and product. And we kind of, in an odd way, thank the board for sort of making those recommendations and to go and retain the engineers. And at the end of the day, like I said, I think it's a much better product.
Okay. Thank you for getting the engineering drawings done. Now, they were given to the town engineer to review.
Correct.
What was his assessment of those drawings? I heard there's some changes had to be modified or something?
Well,
or-
okay, hold on just a second. So I thought there might have been, if you don't have them, I can read some of the comments that they had. So one of the comments is they had suggested that instead of 5.5-foot retaining walls, that to make it 4 feet retaining walls. So we said, that's fine, we can incorporate that. The second comment was that there was this leaching pool that was proposed, and he didn't think it was going to be effective and didn't think that that was necessary. We were going to connect pipes to that retaining wall. To the leaching pool. He said, do not connect the wall drain to the leaching pool. Wall drains should exit from the actual retaining walls themselves. So he did not suggest piping to a dry well, which we had originally suggested. So we said, yes, that's fine, we would agree with that. One of the plans was not to scale, so he just wanted that to be to scale and measuring everything face to face, which he said that's fine. Erosion control, he said, would be important. So there is silt fencing along the property line, but it wasn't on the plans themselves. So he wanted that to just be noted on the plans, that there is erosion control and a silt fence that would be there. And the last comment, he mentioned that he thought that I think the house was built in around 2006. So the surveys and the information, the topographical information was from 2006. And he thought there were some grading changes at that time relative to the topography of the property, so that he just wanted the engineer to go verify the topography on the property versus some of the records that were back from 2006. So he said that's fine as well. So all the different comments that have been recommended by the town's engineer have been relayed to our engineer and the property owner has agreed to all the comments.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Planning?
Just to reiterate what Mr. O'Brien said, excuse me, planning did reach out to the town engineer's office to ask them for comments regarding the revised plans. Mark Riley, who is the town engineer, responded. He did a very brief preliminary review. As Mr. O'Brien stated, Mr. Riley was not happy, being that the type of wall system that was being used, that the walls were going to exceed 4 feet in height and be 5.5 feet in height. He would prefer that the height of the walls remain at 4 feet if that is the type of wall system to be used, and that there does seem to be some discrepancy between the topographical information between 2006 and present, and he would like the applicant's engineer, bless you, to verify the topographical information to make sure it's the most up-to-date.
And we've agreed to all those comments.
Okay, you have?
Yep. I'd be free to respond to any other questions that the board might have or interested observers.
Any questions?
No, I
Bill?
can scratch myself.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard? Come on up, sir.
Good evening. My name is Conrad Dierking.
Lift it up.
Last name is Dierking. I reside at 8 Tulane Court. I'm the residence directly at the bottom of the hill of the proposed project. The steep slope continues all the way down into my backyard. It doesn't stop or change. It's quite steep and it does continue. My request to the board is that they would consider two components of the blocks that they're using. The blocks, as you can see in the photographs, are quite large, almost the size of this table. My one concern is the safety during the build, that the blocks could not tumble down the hillside into my backyard where my kids play and my house is very close to. While the blocks have been sitting there, they've already started to slide down. They're not in place, but they're stacked around, they're staged, and they're already starting to go down the slope towards my house. My second concern would be the aesthetic. The blocks are quite large, industrial, commercial looking, as he noted, like you might see on the Northern State Parkway. However, it's my backyard. And if you take note in the photograph, what's already been done to the property does not fall in line at all with the character of the neighborhood. It's an extremely wooded neighborhood, bordered directly by the Sunken Meadow State Park forest. And all of those trees that were there recently have been eliminated, a majority. There are still some, but a majority of the trees on that slope are now gone. So as I stated, my two main concerns would be the aesthetic and the safety.
This is what they plan on doing? You can take this and go back over there. That shows how they want to reface the block.
Okay. Is that a coating that's applied to the blocks that are there? Because there's already many tens, maybe 100 blocks already there. So I'm curious, will it be the same blocks that will be coated, or maybe I missed that part as they said it, but or will they be different blocks?
I'll ask.
Thank you. And again, just the safety during construction,
Right.
because the slope does continue all the way down to my backyard,
Mhm.
and it's a concern, as I've already seen some of the blocks slip towards my yard. Thank you.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman. Yes, in response to the,
One second.
oh, I'm sorry.
Anyone else wants to be heard on this application? No? Okay. I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
In response to the neighbors, neighbors got a beautiful home, beautiful yard. I'm jealous. He's got chickens. I used to have chickens. My wife made me get rid of them. So and I understand his concerns and the aesthetics as well. So as shown to the board, we plan on doing that with all the blocks. You know, any blocks that are existing and any of the blocks that are going to be relocated. It's all going to be done in coordination with the engineer. So we'll make sure that everything, of course, we want everything to be safe. And that's why I'm glad that we do have the engineer involved with this presently. But with respect to the blocks themselves, yes, all the blocks will be coded, not just, you know, ones that are going to be brought in or moved or relocated. They're all going to be coded with that type of design we have. And then ultimately, I think that, you know, the concept is that, yeah, I've looked around, I went around the neighborhood and saw that there are a variety of different retaining walls, some stone, probably a lot more railroad tie and that sort of thing. But I think the concept here is that, A, to make the blocks more decorative, less commercial, certainly, and then to be able to have the landscaping soften so that this way, ultimately, you might even not really be seeing the blocks. But that's the concept.
And the wall's not going to be taller than 4 foot.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Appreciate your time, consideration, letting us come back here and coordinate with planning and the town engineer. Thank you so much.
Should we leave this open? Pending the review? You're talking about a review for the topographic and...
My understanding is that the town engineer has to finish their review of the plans. If there's any revisions to the plans, he will also review them. He'll also review the topographical information that's submitted with the revised plan. So it's, and then just wait for that information.
All right, fine, okay. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application, it's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Have a good evening.
You too. What? Yeah. Yeah.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18614, Pristine Properties USA LLC, also known as Mitsubishi, 1158 Jericho Turnpike, Comac. The location of the property is the south side of Jericho Turnpike, 400 feet east of Mayfair Terrace. The property is zoned WSI. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum required parking from 173 to 102 spaces, to eliminate the required 3-foot curb cut radius, to eliminate the required landscape islands, 4 proposed 12,427 square foot first floor addition and 14,004 square foot second floor addition to an existing 5,273 square foot car dealership.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. My name is Jessica Nowak. Last name is N as in Nancy, O-W-A-K, of the law firm of Brown, Altman, and DeLeo, LLP. We are the attorneys for the applicant, located at 538 Broad Hollow Road, Suite 301 in Melville, New York. And before I begin, I have a few items that I would like to read into the record. We're going to submit updated 3D renderings of the building itself and a parking affidavit. So I will hand those over to Chairman right now.
Thank you.
I've submitted all mailings and postings to the Planning Department. By way of background, this property is located in the WSI zoning, and the entire area of that location is WSI as well. To the east of the property is Alcamo Granite, and to the west of the property are some other commercial and industrial uses. Behind the property are some residential homes, and across Jericho Turnpike are more commercial and industrial uses. The applicant, Pristine Properties USA, recently completed Phase 1 in 2020. The property opened in October of 2020. Phase 1 encompassed the development of a motor vehicle showroom and outdoor storage on the northern portion of the property. The applicant now proposes to add approximately 55,194 square feet of outdoor vehicle storage on the southern portion of the property, which is approximately 180,380 square feet in total. The applicant proposes to expand the existing showroom and minor repair center with additional showroom space, offices, repair space, and storage. In addition, the applicant is requesting a 71-car parking variance to accommodate the new size of the building. The applicant here is proposing 102 parking spaces where 173 are required. The applicant notes that there are approximately 25 employees right now. After the expansion, there will be 40 employees. These are not full-time all the time. They are on separate shifts. It's approximately 15 employees right now at any given time, so that's 15 employee cars. This will be approximately 25 employees after the expansion, so that's 25 employee cars. Taking into account visitor cars, there's an average right now of 1 customer car per hour. Each customer stays about 2 hours. So that would be approximately 2 cars within a 2-hour period. That's an entire family coming in 1 vehicle. With the expansion, the applicant proposes that this doubles, so that'll be approximately 2 cars in a 2-hour period. In a 1-hour period, staying for 2 hours, so that's 4 cars. That's then about 30 spaces that'll be utilized of the 102 that we are proposing. With respect to the other variances, we're requesting landscaping, elimination of the required landscaping islands, and elimination of the required 3-foot curbing. Those are both conversations with the town to eliminate those items so that municipal snowplows would not bump into them and it wouldn't become a hazard for the snowplows. So with that, we respectfully request that the board grant these. And with me today, I do have 2 people from Pristine. I have Gadi Ashori, who is the project engineer, and Ron Mero, who is the facility manager. So I will bring Gadi up now for any questions that you may have regarding the engineering or architectural.
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Gad Ashuri, G-A-D-A-S-H-O-O-R-I. I did prepare the plans for the client. We propose to do approximately 34,000 square feet. Based on the square feet, we need 172 parkings, but we cannot, even if we want to put, we cannot put more than 102 parking spots. So basically the design is based on the actual size of the building and open space that we can put the parking and the traffic aisles, and we cannot even put more than 102, even if we want. So that's the basic idea.
I'm looking at this revised plan, and you have a delivery path on the south side. Is that cutting into the slope that's there already?
The delivery path, we have an area that is marked in rectangle in the middle of the space between the parking for the
Right.
Are you talking about this middle portion?
I guess my question, on the south side, you put the plantings up on top, and there's a large slope coming down.
Okay.
Is that slope going to stay there, or are you going to cut into it? It looks like you're cutting into it.
No, there is a 20-feet buffer beyond the slope. The slope is 30 feet, and then you have a 20 feet of buffer, and then you have a parking.
Okay, so the slope's going to stay intact,
Yes,
and then you have a 20-foot buffer?
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions?
I do have questions about, I'm looking at this. Are you putting new signage on this building?
Not at this stage. If the client wants to put a signage, they will apply for it
Okay.
in a different time.
Question I have is the current use of the site, when I went and looked at it, I've seen parking on that slope. One of the things that concerns me moving forward is that having the slope run right into the parking lot kind of keeps it from ever not happening again down the road.
It's going to be all, the first 5 feet of the slope is flat, and they have trees, and then there's a lot of shrubberies that we have Mr. Richard Ignatow as a consultant to establish that nothing is going to fall. No
I understand
material.
that. But that's not what I was getting at. What I was getting at was moving forward in order to, A, keep the landscaping and the slope intact, and B, keep any encroachment onto that site. I think it would make sense that a retaining wall was put along that back side and create that buffer that we really want between this commercial space and the residents.
But the slope comes down to the level, and that level continues another 20 feet. And then the parking starts. So where do we put the retaining wall? There is no room to put the retaining wall. The slope is by the book, 1-to-1.
I get that, but you could put a slope, you could put a retaining wall that's 1.5 feet high that delineates the difference,
that
the
I
difference
understand.
between parking
I understand
and
what you're
buffer.
saying. We can make a curb. If you want the concrete curb to run around this, I will talk to the client, and yeah, maybe that's a good idea.
It looks like you took recycled asphalt and covered that slope with it, and then you were parking cars on it.
Listen, I don't know anything about what is going on at the site, but I'm sure that's pictures that you have is from God knows when
No.
they, no?
No.
So,
I can answer that question. In speaking with the applicant and our client, this was when there was a cleanup of the property occurring. We were notified by the town that the cars were parked there, and that was not in conformance with town code. The cars were moved after the cleanup was finished, and that should not be happening again. Cleanup is complete.
You're gonna leave the recycled asphalt there?
Which part? If you could zoom in to where you're speaking about.
On the slope?
no, it's going to be all greenery, shrubbery, vegetation. That slope is going to be, we have this drawing that shows, if you look at the drawing P1, you will see that the slope has so many trees. I don't have the information of the tree here.
Right now, there's like a recycled asphalt on that slope.
All those recycled asphalt would be,
So you're gonna take it all up?
yes.
You're gonna remove the asphalt?
Yeah, didn't you put the trees already? That slope is not going to have any asphalt on it. There is no way that they can do it because we have a plan to put all the,
Well, right now, you're not gonna be able to plant anything on that slope.
So the entire buffer was planted and completed in November of 2022 by their contractor. So everything that's on the bottom of that slope is going to be cleaned up and refurbished, and there will be nothing on the bottom of that slope except for the parking lot area, where it leads into the parking lot area.
So could I make a suggestion? Just because I look at this and it's, personally, I'm just one person, it's not something that I would willingly approve without some modifications. A couple things I think are important. One, I understand the elimination of islands for a maintenance perspective, but it does also leave this sea of asphalt I mean, in the interest of being a good neighbor, if we could maybe get with planning and come up with a couple of tactics here to maybe be a good neighbor and add that retaining wall at the bottom to ensure that that buffer stays intact, perhaps finding some locations for a few islands that may be easier to maintain, but give the ability to put some trees in that sea of asphalt and perhaps kind of buffer some of that sound that now impacts all the houses to the south, I think might be, go a long way in making this something that I personally could approve.
Yes, definitely understood and noted, and thank you for your input. I do note that we did have extensive conversations with the town with respect to the planting buffer that was installed. I believe it was about 6 months of conversations with various departments, and this is what we came to an agreement on with respect to what, you know, planning would like to see and what the town would like to see and the town engineer would like to see moving forward. I do note that it would take further discussions with my clients and with the town to modify that in any way. And my client did spend extensive time and money in implementing the approved planting buffer that was negotiated with the town.
Wasn't that the buffer that you took down? You were just replacing it.
It was replaced and it was also modified so that it covered more extensively.
Also enlarged, it got enlarged. What was there, the slope that was there was very steep, so we didn't have that 30 feet. Originally, we had maybe 15 feet. Before I started on the project, when I looked at this, it was a very steep slope. There were some trees on top, but now we have a 30 feet. So the slope, instead of doing this, is doing that. Besides, if I may make a little comments, I wouldn't put any trees on the aisles because that will, the aisles. You know, you have the greenery that you want to put around the separation between the parking and the driveway. If you put a tree there, it will block the vision of the drivers. So if you don't see the cars coming and going.
No, but it's a requirement in every parking lot in the town of Smithtown. There don't seem to be causing issues in other places.
Yeah, but they don't have a 300, 400 feet of 30 feet of greenery. The entire length of the property in here is all trees. All the other parking lots that you're talking, they don't have all this greenery. So they might have to do one here, one here, one here, staggering. But you have the entire lot covered with trees and shrubbery.
I get it. I don't want to be argumentative with you. I'm just telling you, if you want me to vote no, then don't do anything.
No. We definitely want to do what you want. I'm going to recommend to put that concrete curb at the bottom maybe. But regarding these aisles to be with planting, that's something that the town also agreed, right?
Yes, so originally this was something that the town had requested from us with respect to snowplows, specifically municipal snowplows that might come into the property or around the property with respect to the 3-foot curbing and the landscaping island. So that was requested from us. We can have discussions with the town if you would like us to amend.
It's just a much easier process if you understand what, say, I as a board member are looking for and work with the planning department as opposed to the application comes to us and I say, okay, I approve it with 15 islands, and then all of a sudden now you've either got an Article 78 or comply. So I just think it's a better way of doing it, trying to compromise and say, okay, we can live with this, this, and this, as opposed to not.
Yes, understood. And from a board member's perspective, I'd like to know how many islands you would recommend putting in that area. or
I
what you would
quickly
like
looked
to
at it,
see.
and without losing parking, it looks like you could only add 2 or 3, but you'd be surprised what 2 or 3 trees in a sea of asphalt would do for the aesthetic of it.
Okay, thank you.
And obviously, planning's much better at it than I am. But it just, I obviously want you to be successful, but I also don't want it to have as strong of an impact on the neighbors, and anything we can do on the front end certainly goes a long way.
Agreed, definitely. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Anyone else on the board have any questions? Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. We also have the general manager of the property here to discuss the parking in
I'm
case you had
sorry.
any questions on that. That's all right. Thank you so much. I have Ron Merrow here.
Good evening. Good evening. Just to go over as far as the parking.
Can you just introduce yourself, please?
Absolutely, I do apologize. Ron Merrow, last name M-E-R-R-O-W. As far as the parking, we're looking to go from 173 to 102. For the reason is the amount of people coming into the facility really does not require 173. 102, from what we proposed, would be sufficient. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions? No.
That completes our application. Thank you so much. If you do have any further questions, please let me know.
Okay, thank you. Planning?
Now that they're finished, I do have a few comments. I would like to start by saying that planning was hoping to get some feedback from the residents that live to the south, and was hoping that a few people would show up this evening. But I see that we do have a couple of residents. We want to know if they're satisfied with the buffer that's been planted in the back. And there was some extensive plantings done. I think that the landscaper did a good job, filling in with shrubs and trees, and there is some sod there, if I'm not mistaken. One thing that we are concerned about is that, and it's been brought up by a number of the board members, is that if we can go back to that picture of the parking lot in the rear, Matt. So the parking lot had some type of a asphalt-type material spread throughout the parking lot in the rear. And that asphalt-type material goes up the slope in the back about halfway. You can see in the photo that there were vehicles parked in that area. I don't know if we have any photos handy, but there is a site next door to the east. Ms. Noack had mentioned it, Alcamo Pools, Alcamo Granite. They had a similar situation going back a few years ago where there was an encroachment into the buffer in the rear yard. The town had them restore the buffer, and I believe that they provided the residents to the south with a 50-foot buffer. I know that the ordinance has been amended within the past year or two to permit a 25-foot buffer in WSI. However, in this particular case, we feel that it would be a benefit to the residents if that buffer, we're not talking about the planted buffer, but the buffer, the distance between the rear property line and where the parking begins in the rear property, the rear lot, be 50 feet. So in other words, that area where you see that's now covered in asphalt, the asphalt would be removed. There would be some type of a retaining wall or curbing at the bottom of that slope. They can green it up with grass, they can do some plantings if they wish, but that would provide the residents with 50 feet between the outdoor parking lot and the rear property line, which they have currently now about 25 feet from the rear property line to where the sod is. That's something that we'd like to see happen. And obviously, there needs to be some, should the board approve the application, there needs to be some regrading in the rear yard with respect to where the outdoor parking is going to be on the site.
All right, thank you.
So, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, DEW wishes to consider information that was presented by the applicant, as well as any comments received from the public, before making a recommendation to the board. Therefore, no decision will be made tonight on this application. Thank you.
Okay, so no decision tonight.
Okay, understood.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Come on up, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. William Campisi. I live at 4 Tulip Lane, Comac, New York. We are to the south. My block is to the south of Mitsubishi. When they moved in, prior to them moving in, there was actually a container company, Gibney, as you recall. I know we're all longtime residents. Gibney was horrible. You know what, where they would dump, I don't even know if the land is toxic. That's how bad Gibney was. But they had moved out. Mitsubishi was a breath of fresh air, right up to the time where all of the vegetation was removed from the hill, all right? That slope and the trees provided us not only with a sound barrier, but also keeping the light shining in our windows in our backyards from Jericho Turnpike and the dealership. We hear everything now. All the neighbors are like, oh my God, everything's gone. When they came in with their landscaping plan, I think originally the trees were small enough where they weren't even gonna reach over the fence. So it's totally inadequate. You know what? I'm 66. By the time those trees grow, I'm gone. You know, I'm not gonna be around anymore. So the trees have been increased in size, but they're still inadequate. You can look, they just barely reach over the top of the fencing, all right? And the light is atrocious. Not only that, from the noise of Jericho Turnpike, but I don't know if, I know this is not the issue with Mitsubishi, it's Alcamo. The noise and the pollution and the dust is atrocious that affects everybody to the south of Alcamo. 3:30 in the morning every day, they have a container truck dumping and slamming where my house rocks, all right? And with the absence of the vegetation on the slope, that noise has only increased, all right? My wife has observed these cars parked on the slope. I am thankful that you all take in consideration how it affects the residents of the area, because our quality of life and our right to quiet enjoyment has been greatly diminished. So it's been a handful. So, any questions on Residence Point? No?
No.
So, would you like to say something? All right.
All right.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
What I would recommend is more vegetation, something taller. You wanted to put a retaining wall down below, all right? That would keep the slope intact, right? So, common sense. So maybe vegetation could be enhanced to give us a little more privacy and a little more sound barrier. And I guess at the bottom, on the other side of the retaining wall, you can do what you want as far as parking. I don't, you know, so that's it.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much.
If we may, Chairman, just one comment on, with respect to the trees and the height of the trees. Some of the trees are not evergreen and they are deciduous trees, which will bloom in the spring and summer months, just as the other buffer did. So we will note that these were planted in November and should be blooming shortly in the spring and summer.
Any trees that die over this past winter, are they going to be replaced?
None have died.
No, none of the trees
None
have
have
died,
died.
but if they do die, they will be replaced in kind.
Okay, fine.
I have one more question for you. Would you be okay if we just adjourned it so that you guys have time to get with planning and make sure what the suggestions are acceptable, and if not,
Let
come
me
back?
quickly
Otherwise, we could just close it once the modified site plan is done.
Let me just confer with my client for one moment, and I will come right back.
We don't have secret anyway, so we can't decide.
Right,
so.
exactly.
Yeah, but
Yes, the clients are, my clients have confirmed that that is okay with them. We can adjourn to the next meeting, and we will get together with planning in the meantime and make sure everything's okay. And if board members would like their input, we can gladly include you in the conversation. Please, we can, if you'd like us to reach out. Great. All right, thank you so much. We appreciate your time, and thank
I
you
don't,
again.
let me find a date, because I don't know, it's not going to be the next meeting.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just make a comment on that. It may take some time to set up a meeting and get everybody together, so I'm thinking probably 3 meetings from now. So we'd be looking at, quickly looking at it, May 9th? Either May 9th or May 23rd?
May 23rd?
No?
No good. May 9th?
Yeah, okay.
May 9th?
May I? That works with everyone. Thank you.
Okay, fine. Thank
Thanks
you.
so much. Appreciate your time.
So this application has been adjourned to May 9th. And that concludes our meeting for tonight.